Hello, hello, hello everybody, and welcome along to round number 16 of the Apex Online Racing Hype Energy F3 League. Tonight we are on the north coast of the Black Sea at the Sochi Autodrome for the Russian Grand Prix. While the circuit may not be a fan favourite, it nevertheless provides a significant challenge to the drivers, and the two DRS zones provide ample overtaking opportunities as well. Going into this weekend, we have a new championship leader in the form of the young Pole Kamil Komon, who absolutely blitzed the rest of the field last time out in the Singapore Grand Prix, which featured a remarkably high rate of attrition. Will Kamil be able to firmly establish his newfound championship lead, or will his ding-dong battle with Bolash Kevin continue with the Hungarian fighting back tonight? As ever, my name is Jacob Hancox, and alongside me today to bring you this race is Julio Massa. Hello, Julio.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, it's that time of the week again that we are in the F3 League. And this time, as you've said, at the Black Sea coast in Sochi. Actually, it's more Adler. It's more like the Adler region of the Sochi city, because apparently that's one of the longest cities in the world, even. Some sources claim that Sochi is, I think, 100 kilometers long, something like that.
I've definitely seen something along those lines. Yeah, it's an absolutely sprawling city along the coast.
Yeah, and we are in the southernmost region, as I've said earlier, Adler, the region that has the biggest airport in Sochi, and as well the region that has hosted the 2014 Winter Olympic Games. So yeah, as we've said earlier, not off air actually, we've said that we only have 11 drivers. So maybe if the race isn't the most interesting in the world, we can talk about something about the beautiful stadiums that are around this circuit.
Absolutely, yeah. Just to clarify that, only 11 drivers joining us today. I said the circuit isn't a fan favourite, and evidently it's not a driver favourite either, which is a bit of a shame. We've had very good attendance so far this season, ever since the leads were reshuffled up until this point, so hopefully this is just a blip. And of course, our two main championship protagonists are here though, so that is at least a crucial aspect that we will still be able to follow. Andonator currently sitting in second place in the championship, though not quite with the pace of Kamil Komon and Bolash Kevin. He is not present today, although his teammate, who's in fourth in the championship, Kruzix, is present. So we at least have 3 of the top 4 drivers in the championship here today, so it could be worse, certainly. And we hope they will still be able to put on a fascinating Grand Prix for you all. Of course, only had a 10 finishers last time out at the Singapore Grand Prix as well, but that was mainly due to the attrition rather than a lack of attendance, so we've become a bit used to commentating on a rather sparse field. But I'm just going to stick on board with Kruzix now as we open up the qualifying session. All of the drivers, interestingly, have all elected to go out on those soft tyres early on in the session. They're not poodling around on the hard tyres like we sometimes see them doing. It's no time for a practice session for these guys. They're going for it straight away, and Sissant sets the first lap time of the session with a 1:32.1.
Yes, exactly, and we hope that today's race is really a case of quality over quantity in terms of drivers. As you've said, 3 of the top 4 drivers in the standings. I think Kevin Bolash has the first lap time that has been invalidated today. Watch out for that, especially when you consider how far away from the circuit are the barriers, and how easy it is to cut the corners and track extent here. Only 3 drivers have set the lap times right now, and interestingly, Cooper has overtaken Seaton by only 1,000th of a second, but yeah, Kruzix has just blitzed by them full second quicker than Nutzernost and Cooper. Nutzernost is interestingly only 4,000ths of a second ahead of Cooper.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see 3 drivers so close on times and Beaker not far behind, and then Kruzix just so far ahead. So you'd have thought, looking at those 1:32.1s pretty much across the board, that would be the sort of times we'd be expecting most of the drivers to be setting. But Kruzix showing that he is a bit of a cut above at the moment with a 1:31 flat. What a lap time that is from the Williams driver early on in the session, and he's not that far behind championship leader Kamil Komon. Kamil's on 93 points and Kruzix is on 61 points, so he'll still feel like this championship is still his up for grabs. He'll need to work on his consistency a little bit. He's been a bit up and down in races lately, but the last 2 times out he's got second on both of those occasions, both in Italy and Singapore, which are 2 very different circuits as well. So perhaps we're seeing a bit of an upturn in form for the Williams driver here, and he'll be hoping that he can continue that and maybe go one better and take the win today.
Speaking of the Kamil Komon and Kevin Bolash, I think they can go even better. Kevin Bolash, I've seen, has done a 1 minute 30.9 earlier in the session. Of course, it was invalidated lap. But Kamil Komon today told me that he was doing a 1 minute 29 lap times. So, yeah, he told me that. Maybe he was just bluffing. I don't know. But who knows? Maybe he will set some sort of like lap time like that and blitz by the opposition.
Yeah, I mean, based on what we saw from him last time out in Singapore, I wouldn't put anything past him at this point. Of course, we are yet to see the track improvement that will go on throughout the session as well. Still haven't reached the 10-minute remaining mark yet in this qualifying session, so the track will still improve pretty significantly as the drivers keep circulating. Wazza moves himself up into second and gets a lot closer to Kruzix with a 1:31.2 there, and that could be partially due to that track improvement I was mentioning. Several drivers now on an outlap having either invalidated or simply elected not to go out early in the session. Shad is just starting his lap time now, so I'm going to stick on board with the Frenchman in the Racing Point for a little while. He's had some pretty inconsistent form as well. Looked very, very promising at the first race the first race with the majority of the drivers we have in the field today, which was the German Grand Prix. Managed a podium there, coming third in that race, but since then it's been a bit of a wild ride for Shad. Very disappointing first lap incident in Hungary meant that he finished down in 15th in that race, and then a 10th, a 12th, and then more recently a 5th place in the Singapore Grand Prix, but of course he benefited from the fact that so many drivers crashed out of that race, and including the likes of Bolash Kevin, who you have to assume would have finished ahead of his teammate. That's definitely been the trend between the 2 Racing Point drivers so far. So hopefully Shad can improve a little bit and show some of that promise once again that we saw in Germany.
Yes, and talking about the track, it's probably the easiest track and tires in the entire calendar, so let's watch out what the driver is doing 2, maybe even 3 flying laps in one stint, and that's exactly what Wazza has been doing. He set his flying lap, his fastest lap time on lap number 2, maybe even lap number 3 actually, because I'm lost now, but I think it was his second time lap, and third lap overall, counting the outlet as well. Yeah, I think that's
Shad comes across the line there, moves himself up into third, 1/10 down on Wazza. That's it's a decent start to the qualifying session for him. It moves him ahead of 4 other drivers who have completed lap times, but of course they completed their laps much earlier in the session than the Racing Point driver, so he'll probably not be too content with that, and definitely he'll be hoping to improve before the end of the session. Another man who'll be hoping to improve will be Bolash Kevin. Of course, his lap time on his first flying lap was good, but the cleanliness of the lap was not. He picked up an invalidation somewhere around the circuit. Still pushing at this point in the lap, though, as he enters the final sector of the track, so he evidently hasn't invalidated this lap thus far, as he heads through the tricky off-camber right-hander here. Just very near to kissing the wall on the left-hand side, but that's exactly the way you want to do it. Final 2 corners now, turns 18, and then up towards turn 19 as well. Very much on track, and there is a 1:30.671 from Bolash Kevin, considerably faster than Kruzix.
Yeah, that's the sort of lap time I was hoping to see from him. Meanwhile, Kamil Komon through Sector 1, around that beautiful Bolshoi Ice Dome, the ice hockey stadium from the Olympics, but I think he might have cut turn number 8, maybe. He cut it, maybe not, because it was very, very on the limit, pretty much on the limit, of course, and now going through the second longest straight, actually not a straight, because it's sort of bent But we are going into sector 3, and the lap time after 2 sectors is really close to Kevin Bolash's lap time. So let's see what Camille Cohen does through sector 3, and I think it was, well, not a beautiful, but a really bad executed turns 15 and 16.
Ooh.
And let's see, I think he has... Oh, maybe.
Wow, okay, that looked like an incredibly messy Sector 3, but he somehow made it work. You said he was very close to Bolash Kevin up until that point, and he was only 2/10 down on him by the time he got to the line, and there are at least 2 moments in that final sector where I thought he lost at least a couple tenths of a second, so pretty good driving from Camille to make those mistakes and still be that fast.
Yeah, but remember, Kevin Bolash had a beautiful final sector, meanwhile Camille Cohen had that messy, as you would think, as possible, even this sector, and yeah, he's only 2/10 off Kevin Bolash, but still like 8 tenths off of what he told me that he was capable of doing today. So I'm still waiting for that impressive lap time that he told me he's able to do today.
Absolutely, and he's still got at least 1 more opportunity, maybe even 2 if he elects to do another flying lap on the same set of tyres. It'll be pretty tight though, getting towards the end of the session, 6 minutes and 20.
I think he will come in this time because, well, he is going very quickly to the pit lane, even with maybe minor counter cuts, who knows. But yeah, I think he wants to hit this lap, or maybe... Actually, he has set a higher ERS mode, so maybe he's not bidding. Ah, he's bidding.
Okay, so Camille heading back.
He just sold me a dummy.
Hopefully he can replicate that on a driver in the race rather than just fooling the commentators. But his teammate Schulte's having a bit of trouble at the moment. He invalidated his last lap. I think he's probably invalidated 2 laps in a row now in that Red Bull. He's had to come back into the pit, so he's only got 5 minutes... 5.5 minutes, I should say, until the end of the session, in which he needs to get out there and set a lap time. He'll be pretty disappointed if he has to start down in 11th, but of course that will leave him the only driver who will have free tyre choice going into the race, because we only have 11 drivers in the field, of course, and yet still the top 10 all will have to start on the tyres they set their fastest lap on here in qualifying, so that will be soft tyres for all of those guys, and maybe Schultes will think about making some sort of contra strategy work if he does have to start outside the top 10. Ripson, the other driver at the moment, who has yet to set a lap time, and he's had to abort this lap as well, doing very much the same thing as Schultes and having to head straight back into the pits in the McLaren. So that's not good news for him either. Starting to struggle, feeling the pressure down there towards the bottom end of the field.
Yeah, meanwhile, Shad, I think he has started a flying lap. The only driver who is on a flying lap right now, because apart from him, only Kevin Bolash is on an out lap, and the rest of the field is waiting in the pit lane, trying to warm up the tires, or maybe keep them warm in the tire warmers, tire blankets, and wait for the final lap, final attempt on setting a good lap time around this track. So let's see what Shad can do. He is going through turn 8 right now, a little bit wide in turn 9, and that was really wide, and I think
it's invalidated.
Yeah. I think it's
unfortunate there for Shad. He'll get at least 1 more crack at it though, but he was just too wide through turn 8 there, as it was pretty evident to see, especially when the off-track is coloured a completely different colour to the track. It becomes even easier to tell when a driver has all 4 wheels off of the circuit. Bolash Kevin now, he is also on a flying lap here, and he's just started it, so heading down towards turn 1 comes the Hungarian driver, our current provisional pole sitter and 3rd place man in the championship as things stand. Neat through turns 1 and 2, no problem there. Riding the curb actually all the way through the long turn 4 here. That's interesting. I don't know if that loses you any time or anything, but it will certainly rattle your fillings around, of course.
Well, that's a very tight line through this corner, but I think you don't lose any time doing that. You actually cover a shorter distance, but the question is how much speed you lose by going through this tighter line. But, well, the time will tell us. He barely hangs on to the circuit. He barely stays at the track. But I think he is still going. He still doesn't have any invalidated lap time, so that's good for really tight lines. and really keeps it close to the walls, and he is 1/10 up in the second sector. So let's see how good is he through sector 3. Can he keep it tight? Can he?
Oh no!
Oh no! That's a big problem.
Yeah.
Big problem, and he will abort it.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely has to abort the lap, go straight back into the pit lane. That all started through the turn 15, the off-camber left-hander. He just got a little bit too deep into that corner. Couldn't open up the line properly. Or I should say turn 16, sorry, is the turn I'm talking about. And he couldn't open up the line properly for turn 17, and that led him to that really big kick of oversteer on the exit and getting so close to the wall. He managed to keep it out of the wall, which is important, but with only 2 minutes remaining in the session, I think that's all we're going to be seeing from Bolash Kevin. So Kamil Komon now has a golden opportunity to try and knock the Hungarian off of pole position, and Kruzix will definitely be feeling a similar way as well. Schultes now has started his flying lap, just past his teammate into turn 1, his teammate on his out lap, of course. Schultes getting out there nice and early to make sure that if he has to abort this lap early, he can just reset himself and go for one more flying lap on the same set of tyres before the end of the session. Through the right-hander here, staying well away from the curbing on the inside. You can cut more than he did there and get away with it, but he was not willing to cut it at all. And look how safely he's driving this lap, just to make sure he actually gets a time on the board. He's sticking well away from any track extensions or corner cutting warning. Sensible driving from Schultes, but it's definitely not the fastest way to go around the circuit.
Maybe he will he'll put a sort of conservative lap time right now and go full beans in the next lap. Maybe it's some sort of tactics right now for him, but it's very tricky to pull it off, really. Let's see how good is his final sector. Let's see if he keeps it tight, because that's like, I think he may have cut it.
He lost it.
He may have cut it, yeah.
Oh no, he was so careful for so much of the lap, and then the one corner he decided to take a little bit more of a risk on was that turn 16 that we saw catching out Bolash Kevin, and now it's caught out Schultes as well, but straight back at it once again. No time to cool down the tyres, not much time to build up any more charge in the ERS mode as well, and he's just going to have to go straight back at it. But meanwhile, Kamil Komon, not far behind, has started his flying lap, so let's go on board with him, because he is the most likely driver to knock Bolash Kevin off of pole position. Kevin on an out lap, interestingly enough. I don't think he's going to be able to get round in time to start a flying lap, and several drivers saying they're on an out lap here, but there's only 10 seconds left to go in the session, so this could be very close between these guys if they're able to get up towards the line. A couple of drivers have improved on their time. Sissant up to 6th now, and Kamil running very wide there. Has that invalidated his lap? He might have got out of it just enough, and there's 4 drivers who have failed to make it round in time. That's Shad, Beaker, Ripson, who's not going to be able to set a lap time at all in this session, and Bolash Kevin, who's not going to be able to improve on his current provisional pole time. Kamil still pushing. Looks like he hasn't invalidated his lap time. Through turn 8 he goes. Nowhere near the track limits there. Keeping it very sensible, just like his teammate did. Oh, wide here, though. This could compromise him. He had to get out of it again. You could see how hesitant he was on the throttle, trying to avoid picking up that warning, trying to lose enough time that the game didn't decide to invalidate his lap. As he heads now down towards the very tricky braking zone here at the end of the DRS zone. Cuts it a little bit on the inside, but not too much, crucially now. Very tough acceleration zone here, very, very slippery. And here is turn 16 that's been catching out so many drivers. Cuts it, but not as much as his teammate, and opens up the line nicely for turn 17. This is looking like a neater final sector than what we previously saw from Kamil Komon. Turn 18
Schultes
now.
up to 5th.
Good lap from Schultes. Good improvement from him. The pressure was on and he managed it in the end, but Kamil Komon just about. Look how close it was in the end, but Kamil with a 1:36.15 takes pole position away, and now there's only a couple of drivers still out there setting lap times. Waza out there in the Mercedes. He's pushing in the final sector. What can he do? Is his lap time good enough? I'd be very surprised if he's able to improve 0.6 of a second that he needs to catch up with Kamil. They're heading up to the final corner. He comes now. He's going to be the last driver to have a chance here, and across the line he goes, and it's no improvement in the end. Oh no, there is an improvement, but not enough to move him up a position.
Only 200 200ths of a second behind Kruzix. Yeah, that was only 200ths, not 2000, but still. Yeah, some way of that pace set by the top 2 guys.
There we go then,
Yeah,
Kamil Komon on pole position, and that is putting himself in a very good position to continue his winning streak. He won the last 3 races in the league, and he's on pole position to win the 4th here. But his main rival in the championship, Bolash Kevin, is alongside him, and they were so close in qualifying, and I think they're going to be so close in the race as well. Kruzik's in 3rd. Good performance from him. He'll be looking to try and nip at least one of those drivers into turn 1. Wazza 4th. Schultes in 5th. Did a good job to actually get a lap time on the board in the end with Shad, Sissant, and then I'm afraid I ran out of time to see the rest of the drivers, so my apologies on that.
Yeah, but still, it's only 11 drivers, so we will see it clearly on the grid. Only 11 drivers. No one has joined us. So yeah, that would be Ripson out in P11, the only driver who has the free tire choice, of course. Let's see what tires he will choose for the start. Obviously, he won't choose the hard compound of tire. He really has to make a choice between the mediums and the soft tires because, well, let's be honest, it's the only working strategy here. Maybe he will try to make the reverse strategy work, but we still have 17 seconds to find out before. Yeah, we have 17 seconds before we find out, and now it's only 8 seconds before we find out.
Yeah, Ripson has been on pretty good form of late. His last 4 results were 4th, 5th, 6th, and 6th. So solid point scoring finishes in each of the last 4 Grand Prix for Ripson. So that's going to be a bit disappointing for him that he wasn't able to get around the lap in time to try and start his qualifying lap. He really didn't get a good crack at it in the end after invalidating a couple of laps. There is Sissant in 7th, Hooper in 8th, Nuts down into 9th, and Beaker was rounding out the top 10. He's probably in the worst position of all the drivers because even if, in fact, is that the medium tyres? That looks like the medium tyres to me.
Mediums.
There you go.
For Ripson, mediums.
Yeah, so Ripson has elected to run the contra strategy here, and he will be the only driver starting on the medium tyres, and of course his tyres will be a little bit fresher as well than the rest of the guys up in front who have had to set flying laps on those soft tyres, but that's not going to be that much of a factor here. As you mentioned, tyre wear hardly a factor around this circuit. So we'll have to see whether Ripson, whether this strategy will come back to him at the end of the session and whether his pace on the mediums will be good enough to keep him in touch with the rest of the field.
Yeah, the question is how many drivers will finish this race. Of course, it's harder to crash out today than it was a week ago, but still, the walls are there. And then there is the turn 2, especially turn 2 on the first lap. Big braking zone. We have the longest, I think, run up to the first braking zone in the season. So watch out for some collisions out there. They may happen. So I think we're in for an interesting race start at least, and let's see how it then turns out, how the race turns out later.
Yeah, I hope we'll at least have the sort of battle between Camille Common and Bolash Kevin that we've become used to, as Schultes and Wazza are actually getting very close to each other on the outlap there, maybe starting to try and get into each other's heads a little bit. Schultes was drawing alongside Wazza, while Wazza was swerving very violently on the back straight, not really a straight at all, but the back DRS section. But nevertheless, they didn't end up colliding with one another. So hopefully Bolash Kevin and Camille will be able to provide us with the sort of entertainment they were able to do back at the German Grand Prix especially. That one really stands out as an excellent battle between those two drivers. The lead changed hands between them 3 or 4 times over the course of that race. So hopefully we'll see the same thing happening today. But here we go, onto the grid then. Here come the lights. 5 lights on here in Sochi. And we are underway, and Camille Common leads comfortably from the start. It looks like a pretty okay start, but actually Bolash Kevin with the quicker start, and now with the inside line as well through the turn 1. It's flat out, of course, so that's not too much of an advantage, but he'll have the inside line. They're going to be at least 4 wide, maybe even 5 wide, as Schultes is having a look around the outside shoulder as well. But it's Bolash Kevin into the lead, runs wide over the exit of the corner, though, but he'll get away with that, I think. It might just be the one warning. Camille Common trying to fight back around the outside of the long turn 4, though, and Schultes all the way up into 3rd already. Great start from him, and there's Camille back up got the inside. Oh no, and he's round. There's contact between the two drivers. He kept his front wing out of the wall crucially. So I think he might have got away without any damage there. And Camille Common will be able to continue from down in 9th position. But contact between himself and his main rival Bolash Kevin and drama at the opening of the Sochi Autodrome Russian Grand Prix here as Wazza and Schultes are still going side by side, and there's going to be contact again, and it's another Red Bull round. The second Polish driver and the second Red Bull has also gone round, but he's also kept his front nose out of the wall.
Let's see, nightmare start for the Red Bull team. Schultes down into P11, Camille Common down into P8, but let's wait for Shad. He is trying to overtake Crucix. Crucially, it's Cooper up to P3. Brilliant start by the McLaren driver. Ribson already up into P6, also another McLaren driver with a brilliant start.
Yeah, both McLaren drivers really getting the best of it off of this start. Kevin had a really good start as well, and we saw how many drivers were going side by side. It's Camille Common and Sisson are battling and almost into the wall again for Camille Common. Oh, and there's still contact going on, still wheel banging. Tries it around the outside of turn 18. Now that is audacious, turn 19 as well. Surely he's going to be forced wide by the Alfa Romeo driver. No, he's given the space, and Camille Common looks like he might have taken the position away. It's going to be a straight drag race down towards the first corner. They're, of course, only battling over 7th position at the moment. No DRS to speak of at the moment either. But into the braking zone, who will it be that comes out on top? It is Camille Common who braves it around the outside. Sisson tries to keep his nose in there, but he's forced a little bit wide by the Polish driver and drops down to 8th. And there you saw the front wing of Nutstenutz. He's trying to get involved in the Ferrari as well. Will he get it around the outside of turn 5? Contact once again. So much contact, and wow, over the curbing. Just about holds on to the car. But, ooh, good battling already in this Grand Prix, and we were fearing it might not be that interesting because of the lack of drivers in the field, but they're certainly showing us some entertainment thus far.
Meanwhile, Bika has been in the pit lane. He has put on a new set of medium tires, of course. Meanwhile, Shad has already, maybe not already, because he's still fighting with Crucix for that P4. He tucks behind him. Tries to use his slipstream to his advantage and overtake the Williams driver into turn 13, but he will have to do it around the outside because Crucix goes defensive there and he will stay in P4. Maybe Shad will try and really, better with the contact. So.
Yeah, and did not really, end up well. You said he might try it, and he's ended up with the Frenchman in the wall. He's the 3rd driver to have spun out already in this race. Bika, I didn't see what happened to him, but he might actually be the 4th driver if the Haas driver ended up in the wall himself as well. Camille Common now has solidified that position above Sisson, and now he's up behind Ripson as well, having gained the position from Shad spinning out. He's about to gain another as the medium shod McLaren has no answer for the Red Bull. It looks like there's a battle going on up ahead as well. Crucix and Hooper going side by side into the first corner. Looks like Camille got his move done, but Crucix and Hooper still battling here. Hooper actually ran wide through turn 2 there, and he might have picked up a warning for that, but he's not backing out of the fight with the Williams driver, and Crucix moves himself back up into 3rd position, reclaims his grid slot for the moment, but there's a bit of oversteer on the exit, and Hooper battles back, and he has the inside line this time. He can force the Williams wide, but still he's not interested in giving up. Crucix around the outside here will be very difficult indeed. He's just going to have to tuck inside and hope for another opportunity at the end of the next DRS straight. It's only in a couple of corners time, but all this frenetic battling has meant that Camille Common has already dragged straight up to the back of these two, and he might be thinking about making a move on Crucix sooner rather than later.
And he has great pace. I think Camille Common has the best pace on the track right now. Maybe even better than Kevin Bolash, but we still haven't confronted them yet. Maybe will. Crucix try to overtake Cooper. Will Camille Common try to overtake them?
Oh no!
He does! But they all run wide, and that's Crucix who has come off the worst from the trio of them.
Meanwhile, Ripson's really gained from that. He's up 8 positions now from where he started, still battling with Camille. Doesn't force the Red Bull driver wide, gives him the space, and it looks like Camille will be able to claim the position away. He's already gone around the outside of turn 18 once, and he does it again there. Beautiful stuff. And now Sisson, shark in the water, trying to take it away from the wounded Ripson after his line was compromised through the final couple of corners, and they're going to be side by side. Once again, Sisson will duck back in for the slipstream on the McLaren driver, and it looks like he's going to get a run on him here. Up to overtake mode in the ARS with the DRS as well. Ripson Sisson also gets the DRS, and he sends a dive bomb at the inside of Camille. That was never going to pay off, and Ripson's the one who goes around Camille. Thankfully for him, gets away with it. He did nothing wrong there. The McLaren just got in way too hot on the brakes, trying to attack and defend with one fell swoop. And what looked like an excellent start to the race for the one medium runner in the field has gone very wrong indeed.
Yeah, I think we've already seen 4, maybe 5 spins in, well, the same amount of laps, really. So even though we only have 11 drivers, the race is really, really interesting, at least right now. Nuts behind Hooper. He was down into P6, if I'm correct, after that lunge by Camille Coman into turn 13 on the last lap. But he is back into P4 after, what, 13 corners. Brilliant stuff by Hooper. But meanwhile, Nuts will try to overtake the McLaren driver and does it with ease, even before turn 13.
Yeah, much cleaner overtake there from Nuts than what we've been seeing from the rest of the field. It feels like that's the first overtake we've seen that hasn't involved contact between two of the drivers. And a lot of the times it's just racing incidents. It's hard to apportion blame, but sometimes it does seem like one driver more at fault than the other. I wasn't really sure what to make of the incident between Bolash Kevin and Camille Coman, but Camille is already back up into 3rd position after ending the first lap at the very tail end of the field. So great recovery from him so far. He's been helped by other drivers falling off the road in sympathy. But nevertheless, he's got a big margin to make up with Bolash Kevin now. 8 seconds between these two. Can he close it down? I'd be very surprised. That is a pretty significant gap. But as I keep saying, after what we saw from him in Singapore, his pace can never be discounted. And it looks like we're going to have another battle between 4th, 5th and 6th once again. No matter who is in 4th, 5th and 6th, it seems like they're battling chaotically throughout the whole race. And there's a bit of a train forming behind Nuts now, all the way down to Shad in 8th.
Yeah, and let's see how the tires on Camille Coman will survive this phase, really, because, well, he will try to push them as hard as possible. He will try to, of course, catch Vaza, but Vaza is falling away from Kevin Bolash pretty significantly. Meanwhile, Camille Coman isn't really catching his countryman. Maybe 1/10 between them every sector. That's how much Camille Coman is making up right now.
Here comes Kruzix up the inside of Sisson. He'll be very unhappy with the way the opening few laps of this race have unfolded. He'd have been hoping to make it past his teammate in the championship. But who was that up the inside? It's Shad. Hasn't learned his lesson from sticking his nose where it doesn't belong into turn 16. But this time, it works beautifully for the French driver. Forces Sisson wide and then goes defensive up towards turn 18 here. Gets it turned in nicely though, and Sisson has to worry about Kruzix as well. Sisson getting deep on the brakes, locking up his brakes through the final corner. And now Kruzix has a bit of an opportunity to try and make it past the Alfa Romeo driver. Shad takes 2 positions in one corner at a spot in the track where you never usually see a successful overtake. So great move from the Frenchman. But here comes Sisson and Kruzix now, and Shad's not that much further ahead either, but Kruzix can't quite brake late enough, being a bit more sensible than some of the other drivers have been so far this race, and just tucks him back behind Sisson. But he thought he was going to gain a position that lap. He's in fact lost yet another one, down 5 from where he started. It's not been a good start to this race for the German.
Yeah, and already Camille Coman is 8.6 seconds behind Kevin Bolash. I think the only way that Camille can win today is on penalties, really. I think it's the only thing he can hope for right now, but maybe he has a great strategy. Hooper gets a penalty, speaking of them. But yes, Hooper is just behind Nuts. He may try to overtake the Ferrari driver, and Shad is really leading another train.
Yeah, Shad doesn't seem to have quite the same straight line speed as a lot of the rest of the drivers. Every time there's a straight line, he seems to be losing time to the drivers around him. Sisson around the outside now, turns into the inside line here, and up towards turn 16 they go, and it's the Alfa Romeo driver who comes out on top this time. Kruzix trying to give Shad a taste of his own medicine into turn 16, but he can't make it work quite as well as the Frenchman did on the previous lap. Shad has experience with overtaking maneuvers into that corner. 50-50 so far for him on whether it goes right or whether it goes wrong, but he manages to defend the position there from the frustrated German in the Williams. Meanwhile, Camille not really making much of an imprint on Bolashkevin's lead. He's getting closer to Wazza, but Wazza's getting further away from Bolashkevin at about the same rate, so the gap remains at about 8 seconds. In fact, it's gone up a little bit between Camille Common and Bolashkevin ever since Camille got into clean air. Meanwhile, Sissand and Shad not letting up for a moment in their battling here, and they're still going side by side through turn 4, but this time it looks like Shad will be able to outdrag another car into the braking zone of turn 5, and he does, sticking there in turn 6 for the time being, but he's going to have to go defensive straight away. Again, there's no respite here for these drivers in their battling. They're always willing to stick the nose up the inside if they get half an opportunity, as we've seen so far, and a lot of times not even half an opportunity, and that's why we've seen so many drivers spinning around, facing the wrong way in the wall so far this race, and it's a miracle that it's only resulted in significant front wing damage for one driver.
Yeah, meanwhile, Nitternuts had a big moment coming out of turn 4. I think he's second or maybe even third time in a few laps. So that's cost him some time. He is now 7/10 behind Hooper. When he was when coming out of that turn 4, he was like 3/10 behind him. But still crucially within the DRS range. Meanwhile, Season has lost a position to Crucix. Maybe he will try to fight back into turn 15, and round turn 16, that's Schultes behind them as well, and maybe the Red Bull driver will try to overtake them, and yes, he will overtake Season into turn number 17. Vaza has already come into the pit lane after lap 7, and yeah, that's Schultes ahead of Season. Vaza, meanwhile, will be down and turn into P10, but already on the medium compound tires.
Yeah, Wazza into the pits, as you mentioned, from second position, going for an undercut on Bolashkevin by pitting a little bit earlier than you might expect, but it's going to have to be one hell of an undercut if he's going to make up that 3.5 second deficit he had to the Hungarian in the lead of this race before he came into the pits.
Has crashed into the wall. Sorry to interrupt you, but he has lost the rear of his car going round turn 3 and hit the inside wall, so that's the second driver who has a significant wing damage.
Yeah, front left hand of his wing is completely ruined in that Ferrari, and you can see the amount of understeer it's giving him. Runs very wide, opens the door for Shad, but he's still trying to fight back. He really doesn't need to be doing that, but look at Crucix straight up the inside. Shad was forced wide by the Ferrari driver trying to battle for the position, and Crucix was able to just sweep past both of them. Shad was able to do a similar thing to Crucix and Sissant a couple of laps ago, and now Crucix has got his own back on the Frenchman here, and there's still battling going on as Schultes now gets a run at the Racing Point driver as well, up the inside into the braking zone. More contact between them as they bang wheels, but it looks like Shad has been able to get ahead of him now, and Nutsenuts has found his way shuffled down to the back of this field. Or at least of this train, and he's going to have to dive straight into the pits here. He's losing way too much time with the damage on that front wing, but it's good news for him that he's at least got into a sensible pit window, as it looks like Shad diving into the pits as well.
Yes, exactly, and of course Nutsenuts going really deep into that pit road, but doesn't get a penalty for corner cutting, as it was the case in previous games. And of course Nutsenuts will have to change his front wing and put on medium tires. Vaza up into P8 after that pit stop. Meanwhile, Camille Common has gone down. Yeah, he has gone down. Well, I don't know how to say it really, but he has reduced his gap to under 8 seconds. There we go.
Indeed he has, yeah, and it was significantly above 8 seconds a couple of laps ago, so he's starting to get a bit of pace onto Bolashkevin as they get towards the latter part of this soft tyre stint. So evidently once the tyres do start to get a bit worn, and they do eventually start to get a bit worn around here, it seems like Camille has better movement, and now it's Beaker by the look of things. Yet Beaker has gone round in turn 2. I don't know if there was contact between him and Nuts perhaps, and Shad, they'd just come out of the pits and ended up about where the Haas driver was on track. Not sure if there was contact there, but that's Beaker's second adventure of this race, and a very unwelcome one. And he's got front wing damage once again, so this race going from bad to worse for the Haas driver.
They might have had some contact because Beaker has lost his left part of front wing. Meanwhile, Kevin Bolash comes into the pit lane, as does Camille Common, who only just makes it into the pits, doesn't get a penalty for speeding and doesn't get a penalty for corner cutting. And let's see what will be the, of course, the time difference between them, and where will be Vaza in all of that. of course, also Crucix comes into the pit lane. So only Cooper, Schultes, and Season haven't hit it yet.
Doesn't look like Waz was going to have an opportunity to make it past Bolash Kevin. The undercut was a bold attempt. He was given a couple of laps to make it work in the end, but it wasn't enough. Look how close he did manage to get, though. He cut that gap down significantly from the 3.5 seconds it was before they came into the pits, down to just 1.1 second between the drivers, but it's not enough for Wazza, and he will, for the rest of this race, have slightly older and more worn tyres than Bolash Kevin, so he's probably not going to have the pace over the Hungarian driver at any stage for the rest of the race, and that is a bit of a shame for him that he couldn't make that undercut work. He really needed to get past him in the pit stops to have any chance of winning this race, and it doesn't look like it was to be. Bika has retired from the session. Not sure if that was due to contact or if he just decided to throw in the towel. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the latter, though I would have definitely kept circulating around here. With only 11 drivers in the field, only one other driver had to retire for him to pick up a point, but nevertheless he has elected to sack it in and just go next, waiting for the next Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Sissant very close behind Ripson at the moment for what has become third and fourth positions. Ripson, of course, running the contra strategy here, has managed to do well enough that he hasn't been, he has managed to stay ahead of Bolash Kevin after Bolash Kevin has had to come into the pits. But, of course, the gap is not very significant between them, and Ripson will have to pit just later in the race. He will not be able to make those medium tyres last until the end of the race, and he would not be allowed to do so even if he could. Hooper, Schultes and Sissant, the final three drivers on the soft tyres, all heading into the pits at the end of this lap.
And that leaves Ripson up in the lead, not only 3 seconds ahead of Kevin Bolash, who is a further 1.3 seconds ahead of Baza, and 5.1 seconds ahead of Kamil Common, who is now 6.3 seconds behind Kevin Bolash. So he has reduced that gap between them pretty significantly.
Yeah, and the undercut's actually been very successful for those drivers who have tried to affect it. Crucix now completely ahead of all of these guys by a significant margin. Hooper gets a 3-second time penalty just after he comes out of the pits by running wide and cutting turn 2 there. That's not good news for the McLaren driver, or rather cutting turn 3, I should say, the exit of turn 2. Meanwhile, though, it looks like the gaps have strung out a little bit, though. Sissant and Shad, who've been battling with each other pretty much non-stop since the race started, look like they're still going to be going at it here, with Sissant only half a second, I should say, behind the Racing Point driver at the moment. And of course, he's seemed like he had better straight line speed at all points during this race than Shad has had in his own car, so Sissant may well be having an opportunity to try and make it past Shad sooner rather than later, but Camille is really scything down that gap all of a sudden to Bolash Kevin. He's getting much closer to Wazza as well, 4.8 seconds now separating those two.
Meanwhile, Wazza has decided to throw in some drift going around turn 14. Very spectacular for the fans, but not spectacular for his lap time, definitely. And let's see what will be the lap time set by Kamil Common. Will it be the fastest lap of the race? No, it isn't, because it's still 0.3 of the fastest lap set by Kevin Bolash.
Interesting. Okay, and Crucix goes, and actually he's the fastest driver on track at the moment with a 1:35.2 in the Williams. Now that he's finally escaped the mire and the battling down towards the latter half of the points on the bottom end of this field, Crucix in free air goes and sets the fastest lap of the race so far. So it's going to be a matter of what could have been for Crucix. If he has the pace for the rest of this race of Kamil Common and Bolash Kevin, he just will be thinking, what if he didn't have such a bad start? What if the first couple of laps didn't just went his way, instead of him getting unlucky in parts and not getting the right drag off the line as well? But meanwhile, here comes Bolash Kevin cruising straight up to the back of Ripson here. He's got so much more pace than the McLaren driver on those very old, well, reasonably old mediums that Ripson has at the moment. He's gained about 1.5 seconds over the course of this lap, and 1.5 seconds over the course of the previous lap as well. And now around the outside he's going to go at the end of the DRS straight here. Can he make the move stick? Yes, he can. Ripson realizing probably that that was not his battle. He's not challenging for the race victory here and just letting the Hungarian go by.
Yeah, that was a very easy overtake by Kevin Bolash. Didn't lose any time there. He may have even gained some time on Wazza and Kamil Common. Kamil Common has reduced the gap between him and Wazza to, well, 4 seconds flat almost. 4.1, but, well, it's almost 4 flat. But at 6 seconds behind Ripson and 6.5 behind Kevin Bolas, Ripson is still using DRS to actually try to follow Kevin Bolas, but I think he will fall away from the Hungarian going through the second sector and third especially.
Here comes Sissant. Will he have an opportunity to make it past Shad, battling over 8th and 9th places at the moment, going into turn 2. Here they come, and it's Sissant that's later on the brakes. Looks like he's got the move done if he can just stay on track, and he does. But now he's had to compromise his exit a little bit to make sure he didn't pick up a warning there. And Shad tries to look around the outside of turn 4, but nothing doing there. And Sissant is back up into 8th position, but I suspect we've not seen the last of the battle between these two drivers. Meanwhile, Schultes closing down Hooper at the moment. I thought once the DRS train had been broken that some of these drivers would just string out in the field. We'd see less battling. That Schultes has managed to get himself back within DRS range of Hooper, but only just at the moment.
And that's great for us and for the entertainment. But Schultes gets a 3-second time penalty and also drifts wide in turn 9. But, well, he has made up some time on Hooper.
Yep, somehow that was actually the faster way to go around turn 8 there, so that's interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we picked up a second warning for that immediately after the previous one as well. Close
And
behind Hooper, but not
Shad
close
has-
enough. And yep, there are Shad and Sissant going at it once more.
They are trading positions, really, so I expect the season to be ahead, Shad, going into turn 2, but let's see how it all unfollows. Meanwhile, Ripson still 1.5 seconds behind Kevin Bolas and 1.2 seconds ahead of Vaza. Vaza has still a 4-second advantage over Kamil Common, who had a very slow, I mean, not very slow, but not spectacular last lap. And guess what? Seasoned is ahead of Shad. Meanwhile, Schultes has overtaken Hooper, but Hooper is trying to fight back going through turn 3. Will he try to dive down into turn 4? But no, he doesn't do that.
Yeah, Schultes with a nice move around the outside of turn 2 there, but Hooper still sticking his nose in. Aggressive stuff from the McLaren driver forces Schultes to run wide in the end just to give the McLaren driver enough room on the inside. And look how much later on the brakes he was there as well than the Polish driver ahead, but he just had to get out of it as a result of that. And Hooper a little bit further behind Schultes now than he was before, and going on to the DRS section here, not exactly a straight. Will he be able to catch back up to the Red Bull driver before they get to the braking zone of turn 14? It's going to be close between these two as he gets closer and closer. You can see him just reeling the Red Bull driver in. He's not close enough to think about it, or is he? Up the inside, one hell of a dive bomb from the McLaren driver, and Schultes, very polite indeed, gives him the space. He was perfectly within his rights to shut the door on the McLaren driver there, but still they're going side by side. And this time, no, still fighting. I was about to say this time it's Schultes ahead, but they're still side by side. And once again, we're going to have to see a driver try and go around the outside of turn 18. It's a Red Bull. We've seen pull that off multiple times, and it's the other Red Bull this time that's able to pull it off. And Hooper compromising his run out of the final corner and down towards turns 1 and 2 as well by taking a much tighter line by trying to keep alongside Schultes. And this has brought Sissant and Shad right into play as well, because all that battling was really costing Hooper and Schultes some time. And now the McLaren driver back up the inside for turn 1 again. Sissant looking interested as well. Forces Schultes to stay a little bit wider than he'd want to on the entrance to the corner, but it hasn't compromised him much, as he looks like he's going to be having yet another go up the inside of Hooper here into turn 5, and he's alongside but forced to cut the corner there as Hooper didn't give him as much space as he would have been hoping for. Meanwhile, Sissant and Shad have been battling as well, but Shad's been repelled for now by the German in the Alfa Romeo, and it looks like Hooper's repelled Schultes for the moment as well.
And right now, I think we are seeing hammer time from Kamil Common. He has set the fastest lap of the race, has brought the gap between him and Kamil Common down to under 3 seconds. Meanwhile, Vaza has overtaken Ripson with ease, who is drifting through turn 14. Shad gets a 3-second time penalty. Will we see Ripson coming into the pit lane sooner than later? Yes, he is coming already into the pit, so that's lap 15. And he's already in the pit lane. Meanwhile, Hooper and Schultes are still trading positions. And Season, as you said earlier, he is interested in taking that P6, if I'm correct. Meanwhile, Ripson in the pit lane, of course, will take soft tires with him, and will and will try to rejoin ahead of that train, but I think he will fall behind them. Meanwhile, Kamil Common, 2.5 seconds behind Vaza, 6.6 behind Kevin Balash. Meanwhile, Ripson will be behind Shad. Meanwhile, Hooper and Season will try to overtake Shoulders, but this time the Red Bull driver defense from both of them, and he is up into P5. Ripson 3.7 seconds behind Shad, comes just ahead of Nuts, who collects another time penalty.
Yeah, absolutely critical for Ripson that he came out ahead of Nuts, but he's going to have his heart sink as he comes up to the back of this crazy 4-car train, battling as much as they are. Kruzik's picking up another 3-second time penalty as well, but he's been able to comfortably drop the rest of these guys because of all the battling they've been doing, and Ripson's going to have to pull off some excellent driving and some excellent racecraft if he's going to make it through these guys and keep A, his front wing intact, and B, his time intact. He really needs to get through them as quick as he possibly can, but with the amount of battling they're doing, that's always going to be hazardous, so expect some fireworks when Ripson pulls up to the back of these guys. The best he can hope for probably is 5th. There's a 10-second gap between Schultes and Kruzix, and that would be one hell of a mountain to climb with only 10 laps remaining in the race. Here they go, Hooper up the inside, sorry to cut you off there, he's battling once again with Schultes, and this is just going to keep going on for the rest of the race, so we'll always be having something to talk about at least. Shad doesn't seem like he's been too interested in battling with these guys, and I'm surprised they're not starting to calm down a little bit, just trying to stay in a train for a little bit, seeing if they can benefit by just not battling each other and seeing what sort of pace they can run, but at this point, Kruzix is so far down the road that they may as well just keep battling with each other. Nuts is closing up to the back of them, but not as quickly as he would like, I'm sure. And it looks like Hooper's going to retake 5th position for now as he sends it up the inside of Schultes. And once again, Schultes fighting back. They're always fighting back. They're never conceding the position easily either. And that's leading so many of them to pick up extra time penalties than they need to. And Sisson and Hooper, wow, what a moment that was from the Alfa Romeo driver, completely in opposite lock around turn 4, but he's managed to make it work in the braking zone around the outside of the McLaren driver. I'm not sure if any contact was made between those two when Sisson had that moment, or if he just had it all on his own, and meanwhile Shad still just watching and waiting behind.
Kamil Conway has reduced the gap to under 10 seconds. Meanwhile, well, Ripson is pretty much a part of this train, and if they keep battling like that, then Nuts will become a part of them as well. So let's see, can Season overtake, or try to overtake Schultes into turn 13? I think he will do that with ease, but he will try to do it around the outside. And can he make it stick? Yes, he shuts the door on Schultes and takes that P5, but Schultes will of course try to overtake Season again, but now Hooper tries to dive down the inside into turn 15 and does that, but doesn't take that position. Can they fight? And Ripson will try to overtake Shad. They go 3 wide, and that's Shad who has been spun by the 2 McLarens. Cool. I tell you what, Shad has retired from the session. Probably that's some sort of a rage quit. But I tell you what, a McLaren sandwich with a Racing Point filling doesn't
safety car
doesn't do all. Oh my goodness me!
A real life safety car. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Well, that's going to change the complexion of this race entirely. This is a full safety car caused by Shad's, I mean, what can only be described as a rage quit from the Racing Point driver. Yeah. He was still in the points. He could have come home in 10th position easily, and wow, okay, well this is going to be quite something. What we've seen when these guys are close on track, they're so even on pace that they've been battling frantically, and we've seen when they're that close to each other that the battles just never stop, and now we're probably going to see that for the whole field here.
Yeah, the question is if they decide to pit, really. The top 3 have a big gap over Kruzix and the rest of the field, so they might as well decide to pit and change the tires, take a new set of soft tires, and be as fast as possible on the restart. Meanwhile, let's see, Kevin
stays out.
Vaza comes into the pit lane, so does Kamil Coman. That's a big mistake from Kevin Bolish.
Yeah, I think that must be a mistake. I mean, tyre wear not a big factor here, but the step difference between the mediums and the softs, and the fresh softs as well as those pretty worn mediums now, 9 laps into that stint is Bolash Kevin, and he just didn't risk it. He didn't even think about going into the pits at any point, and I'm really surprised by that. Very weird stuff there. The rest of the drive's going to go into the pit. Sisson does not. Schulte's pits. Ripson stays out, of course. He's only on 2-lap-old soft tyres, now 3 laps. So this probably hasn't benefited him all that much. But if he can stay ahead of all the guys who did come into the pits, maybe it will in the end. Will he come out of the pits ahead of Camille Common? No, he will not.
Common, yeah, he has lost a position to Season, so not the most fortunate thing for him. But well, let's see how the restart goes. Season up into P3, Camille Common up and down into P4, Ripson up into P5, through 6. Cooper Schultz down into P8. Of course, the Red Bulls have double stacked them. And Nuts down in P9. Of course, they won't have less than 2 points in this race. Meanwhile, Kevin Bolash has caught the safety car. That's, of course, been made under behind the wheel of that Mercedes car. Massa in P2, the first driver on new set of soft tires. Can he use them to his advantage? And how quick will be Season on the restart, or will he drop down the field?
So just to answer a quick question in chat, I've just seen it. Sorry if you sent that message a little while ago, but I've just seen the message. There should be details in the description for how you can get involved with Apex Online Racing and start racing in the leagues. There's a sign-up process you have to go through over on the forums on the Apex Online Racing website, but it's easy enough to do. You have to do a few time trials and give an example of a ping test and fill out a sign-up form. But once you've done that, you should be able to join a league pretty much straight away, as long as you manage to get all those things done. So head over to the Apex Online website. There should be a link in the description for that. And you too can race here just like you're seeing these guys doing. And with this sort of frantic battling we've been seeing, it must be really enjoyable to be a part of.
Yeah, I've done it twice in my life. So yeah, the sign-up process is easy, as you've said. And it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. My best races in my life have been in AOR. Season 16 and 17, if you ask, but yeah. I really recommend doing that.
Absolutely, so do I. So, leading the way, it is Bolash Kevin, who did not come into the pits under this safety car. Right behind him, Wazza on much fresher and softer soft tyres compared to the mediums on the racing point up ahead. And Wazza, all of a sudden, looks like he might be in pole position to win this race if he can fend off Camille Common. But he's going to be helped in that by the fact that Sissant is between himself and the or his Polish compatriot down in 4th position in the Red Bull at the moment. Camille has had better pace than Wazza, but Wazza's pace has pretty much been nothing to sniff at throughout the rest of this race. He has been pretty fast so far. Not quite with the same pace as Bolash Kevin and Camille Common, but maybe enough to keep one of them behind, or at least to keep battling with one, as we've seen the drivers doing so far during this race. Ripson in 5th on slightly older soft tyres than everyone else. He might be feeling those towards the end of the race, but he really was kind of caught out by the safety car here. He was caught between a bit of a rock and a hard place. If he can hold on ahead of Kruzix, Hooper, Schultes and Nutsenutz behind, he'll be happy with a 5th position come the end of this race. Given the circumstances, Kruzix will need to regain some positions from where he was, but he'll be feeling like he's got an opportunity to maybe even challenge for the podium in this race, and safety car coming in this lap.
And yeah, it's very tricky phase right now. It's easy to hit your rival on the track because they are slowing down significantly, and remember that you can't overtake before the start-finish line. Before 2019 season, you could have overtaken after the second safety car line, which on this circuit is before turn 17, but right now they have to wait all the way down to the start-finish line. So Kevin Bolash, I think he still waits. He still tries to go as late as possible, and Kevin Bolash tries to go. Now Wazza, Season, will Camille Common try to overtake Season? Will Wazza try to slipstream past Kevin Bolash? He tries to warm up his tires. Now there's a big chance for Wazza to try and overtake Kevin Bolash coming into turn 1. Will he try to do that? No. And Season goes defensive. Ripson gets a 3-second time penalty, but no changes in in the race right now, but Kamil Komoy, no, Vaza has overtaken Kevin Bolash into turn 3, and Kamil Komoy will overtake Seasend into turn 4. Yes, he does it.
Indeed, so both of the guys who came into the pits getting past the guys who did not, who are stuck out there marooned on those old medium tyres now, and they're already feeling the worst effects of it. Bolash Kevin down to second. He hadn't left first position at any point during this race up until then, and now down into second he goes. Camille Common in third and now right behind Kevin, and he'll be looking for revenge after an incident between those two on the opening lap just towards the end of the very first sector of the race. As my game has frozen a bit there, but it would come back just in time. Thank goodness for that. I thought I was crashing there. But speaking of crashing, will Camille Common and Bolash Kevin come together once again when it comes to a battle? Kevin will be desperate to keep the Polish driver behind, because Kevin really needs to narrow down the championship lead. He can't afford to let Camille Common by just like that and let him build up a larger championship gap than that which he already has. Hooper's lost a position down there to Schultes, but I'm going to stick on board with Camille Common for the moment and see whether he'll be able to make the move past Bolash Kevin into turn 2. Wazza, fastest lap of the race so far, 1:33.8. Camille Common, of course, has spent most of this lap stuck behind Kevin Bolash, but he might well have the pace on Wazza once he gets past the Hungarian driver, if he gets past the Hungarian driver, because he was not close enough, not even close to being close enough, at the end of that opening DRS straight there, and into turn 2 he had to just tuck behind the Hungarian in the racing point. Interesting to see that. Maybe he's going to have a harder time of getting past Bolash Kevin than we thought.
Maybe, but well, remember that Camille Common has a penalty advantage, and they come together. They made a contact. I think there was a front wing of Camille Common that has gone, a front wing and played. Yes, it was, but he makes it. He makes the move stick, but he is now 3 seconds behind Vaza. Can Vaza win this race? Can Camille Common stay ahead of Kevin Bolash with that stricken Red Bull?
Kevin Bolash, I mean, we saw him swiping across to the left there in his battle with Camille. Once they were both off track already, he took a further swipe to the left. I'm not sure. He might well have been countering for some oversteer, and that might explain that. But if not, then he's got a lot of explaining to do. I wasn't on board with him, so I couldn't quite see it. But from Camille's angle, it looked like Kevin just completely came and sideswiped in there. And that is where the front wing damage came in for Camille Common. He'll be driving the widest Red Bull in the world now to try and keep Bolash Kevin, Sissant and the likes of that behind. He gets the buffer of the two guys on the older medium tyres, and Camille Common with a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. That's something we're going to have to consider coming towards the end of this race. How many penalties does Wazza have? Will Camille be able to keep in touch? I think that's Camille's first penalty of the race, unless I'm very much mistaken. But the front wing damage for Camille Common means that Wazza, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he was second for the whole race, but he never looked like taking the win. But all of a sudden, because of the damage to the Red Bull behind, he looks like it's his race to lose at this point.
Yeah, Vaza has 2 penalties, Camille Common has 1, and interestingly, Kevin Bolash has none, so he still is in a position to win this race, but on penalties, and I think the clouds are coming onto the circuit. Can it rain? Well, it will be a sort of interesting thing, at least, but Camille Common seems to have better pace than Kevin Bolash, but Kevin Bolash doesn't want to cut any corners right now. He has 2 warnings, so if he cuts another corner, he will get a 3-second time penalty, but right now, well, he is in, has a comfortable shot at the win.
Absolutely. I noticed there's dark skies, as you were mentioning. Has this race got one final twist in the tail here? It's been a really up and down race. Lots of frenetic battling. Not the cleanest race by any means, and the driving standards have been somewhat lacking from many of the drivers here today, but boy, has it been entertaining to watch. And if it starts to rain with only 3 laps remaining, it can only get better. Sissant running wide there, struggling on those old medium tyres, and Schultes up the inside. Into turn 18 he goes, and he is now ahead of the Alfa Romeo driver, but he'll have to defend now with no DRS to his name, and a train of cars, each with DRS, scrabbling behind him, desperate to try and get past the Red Bull. Currently sitting in 5th position at the moment. Sissant already battling battling back, even though he's on those old medium tyres, even though he's not going to be able to hold that position for long, but he gets it done. Late, though, on the brakes, just too late, and Schultes back around the outside, kept it cool, and the Red Bull driver's back up into 5th for now. Kruzix thinks about sticking it around the outside of turn 4 and looking for the inside line into turn 5. Here he goes, up the inside of the Alfa Romeo driver, both much more respectful than usual, both just about staying on track. Sisson a bit wide in the end, and Kruzix will have to tuck in behind Sisson for now. Good defending for the Alfa Romeo driver, considering the disparity between the two sets of tyres.
Meanwhile, Kevin Bollash still behind Kamil Kolein, but they are losing time to Vaza, and they are losing time rapidly. Can Vaza hold on to that win? He has 6 seconds of time penalty. Time penalties. I can confirm. And he has 4.5 seconds lead over Kamil Kolein. That's enough for him to keep his position over the Red Bull driver, but Kevin Bollash is just 3/10 behind Kamil Kolein. That means he is right now 4.9 seconds behind Vaza, and with no time penalties to his name, he will be the winner. Meanwhile, I hear you reacting to a big battle down the field.
Yeah, Kruzix with an absolute armful of opposite lock there as he was battling with Hooper. He's dropped down another position to 8th, and I said he was a driver who could be hoping perhaps to try and get a podium off of the restart. No! It all goes wrong for Sissant and Hooper. Sissant into the wall. Hooper looks like he's just about got away with it, but he was the one who pushed Sissant wide. Maybe Sissant was sticking his nose where it didn't belong, but either way, Sissant has ended up in the wall and at the very bottom of the field, and Hooper's lost out to Nutst as well, who's really close behind Kruzix now. Meanwhile, Kruzix losing it once again. I said he had an armful of opposite lock earlier in the lap, and now he's just almost lost it again in the Williams, just about holding on to it. Great car control from him, but he needs to just calm it down and try and keep it all facing in the right direction here. Schultes, meanwhile, has absolutely dropped the rest of these guys now. Clear up the road he goes in the Red Bull, looking to close down Ripson with that 3-lap advantage on those soft tyres compared to the tyres that Ripson is on. And 9 laps is about when the drivers started to come into the pits after their opening stint on those soft tyres. But of course, the safety car period and the leaner fuel loads will mean that Ripson will not struggle as much on his tyres towards the end of this race as they were doing towards the end of the opening stint. Sissant losing time at the back of the field now. You've got to think that that's it for him. He has been probably the most chaotic driver in the field so far this race. The battling has almost entirely involved him up and down the field. No matter where you go, Sissant is battling with someone, and eventually it's come back to bite him at the very end of the race. Down into 9th he goes, though of course that will still be 2 championship points for him, and we're yet to see how the penalty situation is going to play out. Meanwhile, Bollash Kevin so close behind Kamil Kolein now, and Kamil has at least 1 3-second time penalty. I'm not sure if Kevin has any, but nevertheless he'll want to get past the Polish driver if he has any say about it, just to stamp his authority on the championship battle between the two. He goes very far to the inside indeed, not risking any contact between them, and still they have to go side by side. Kamil has the tyre advantage, but Kevin's car is completely in one piece, and the same cannot be said about the Red Bull of Kamil Kolein, who's suffering from the loss of downforce from his front right end plate missing from his front wing here, but he manages to hold on to the position for this moment in time, and Schultes has pulled right up to the back of Ripson as well.
Yeah, and this battle between Kamil Kolein and Kevin Bollash is the best thing that could have happened to Vaza. Right now, Kevin Bollash is 6.5 seconds behind Vaza, so right now, Vaza will win this race, unless he gets another penalty, that is, of course, but still, we have to wait. 1.5 laps to go, and still probably a lot of things can happen. Do I see some raindrops? No, I thought I've seen some, but I haven't. That was a mistake from my part.
Here comes Schultes, up into turn 14 he comes, and Ripson struggling on those tyres at this point. Schultes' tyres that little bit fresher, but still the McLaren has enough to battle back. As we've seen so many times, drivers aren't able to get the overtaking move done in the first time of asking. They keep battling side by side through corner after corner, and it's been so excellent to watch. But this time it's Ripson that's been able to defend Schultes with a big moment of oversteer on the exit of turn 16, and as a result has to get out of it. Leaves the McLaren driver back up ahead of him for the moment in time. Kevin's dropped a little bit further away from Kamil Kolein. Doesn't look like he's going to be close enough to make a move into turn 1, but Schultes certainly will be. And now Ripson very tight to the inside, desperately trying trying to defend, trying to battle away the Red Bull driver, but Schulte's around the outside of turn 2, makes the move stick, or does he? Once again, Ripson will be so close behind him, but no, he just is not close enough to think about making a move into turn 5, and Schulte's is now up into 4th position as well, but we're still yet to see how the penalties are going to shake out. They're going to get to the end of this race in one order, and I'd be surprised if any of the drivers, bar maybe Wazza, ends up finishing in the same position, and Sissant as well, down there in 9th. He's going for fastest lap, having come into the pits and strapped on yet another set of soft tyres, and Kevin with a 3-second time penalty all of a sudden. That puts him level with Camille, surely.
Yep, exactly. That means Wazza has almost guaranteed the win here. Cameron Conway will stay in P2 and Kevin Bullish will stay in P3, but still, wait, we have half a lap to go. Wazza into turn 14. Kevin Bullish, will he try a last lap move into turn 13? No, maybe into turn 15. But I still think he is way too far behind Cameron Conway. Wazza will win today. It is another win for Poland in this split somehow, and that is Wazza in P1, and Kamil Conway will hang on into P2. Nuts has retired from P8.
What on earth has happened to Nuts? I don't know what's happened there, but Sissant will claim that position away from him after they come across the line. It's Schultes who does hold on to 4th, Ripson in 5th, Kruzik 6th, Hooper 7. In fact, they've all pretty much ended in the same sort of order. They all had a pretty similar amount of penalties in the end. Will Sissant be able, meanwhile, to take the fastest lap away? That's the final thing we have to decide before the end of this race. And when will he pass Nuts? Where did Nuts end up in the wall? Will we see a stricken Ferrari by the side of the road at any point? Sissant actually overcooks it into turn 16 there. Just up towards the line he comes. He just needs to keep it nice and neat and tidy. Looks like Nuts might have been in the wall on the outside of turn 17, probably battling with another driver, and in the end it didn't come well for him, and it looked like Sissant did take the fastest lap away, and he claims 8th position, last on the road, but still a solid point scoring position in the end for the German Alfa Romeo driver. But what an absolutely chaotic race that was. Driver standards out the window, but entertainment through the roof.
Yeah, exactly, and that was the race. Even though we've had 11 drivers, it was incredibly intense one. And I think Nuts, even though he crashed, he will still pick up 2 points because he has driven, well more than 19% of the race, I would say. I'd even say he drove like 99.9% of this race because he only crashed 2 corners from home. But that is Wazza with a race win.
Look at that. Everyone with some time penalties to their name, and Wazza, the unlikely race winner. He had good pace around here, better than we usually see from the Mercedes driver, and he was able to make it work in the end. The safety car benefited him. Kevin made the fatal error of not coming into the pits when the safety car came out, and as a result, he was easy meat for Wazza. And then Camille Common trying to get past Bolash Kevin ended up getting sideswiped by the Hungarian driver. We're yet to see whether that will be taken to the stewards, but it wouldn't surprise me if it does. And that meant that Wazza pretty much had the win in his pocket from there on out. The extra time penalty didn't matter in the end. A 3.5 second margin he had to Camille Common. Bolash Kevin in 3rd rounds out the podium. Schultes in 4th after a very up and down race. Ripson made the contra strategy work just about. In 5th place, Kruzik will be disappointed after qualifying in 3rd to finish down in 6th. He just seemed to get caught up in battle after battle, and a shame for the Williams driver that he wasn't able to get any closer to Camille Common and Bolash Kevin as he looks to try and challenge for the championship towards the latter stages of this season. But thank you guys so much for watching this race. It has been an absolute pleasure to commentate alongside Julio here in the commentary box as well. So many moments throughout the race, and while it would be nice to see a bit some more cleaner battles between the drivers, the fact that the battles went on for corner after corner so many times was just so exhilarating to watch.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for hosting me today. It was a pleasure as always, and we'll see you next year actually.
Absolutely. So thank you guys very, very much for watching. That's it from us today. Good night.